Hey friends, welcome back. I've been keeping a secret, partially out of fear, partially because I wanted it to be a surprise, but I think I'm going to unveil it today. If you do not want any spoilers for the Northwest Flower and Garden Festival, you click away now. You jump ship. You go on to the next. Watch another video. If you do not mind a spoiler or two, I'm inviting you inside. And we're about ready to get vulnerable on the internet. Are you ready? So for the last 2 months, I've actually been working on my garden design for the Northwest Flower and Garden Festival. And I want to, every year I try to push the envelope a little bit. I try to do something different. I try to kind of tell the story of who I am because it's so rare that I get to design for myself. So about 2 months ago, I started working on an aspect of this project. Some of it has gone well. Some of it has been a disaster. But at the end of the day, if you don't try, you really never know. So we're going to start this video by going down to my basement. And I'm going to show you one of the projects that I've been working on. So the lighting is not perfect, but I want to show you what I'm working on. And part of me, like I said, part of me hasn't wanted to show you this because if it fails and you all show up at the show and you're like, what the heck, Kate? I thought you were going to show me some Gara. And then I have to be like, yeah, I killed it. Or it got bugs or whatever. But here is the long and the short of all of this. You always got to try. And so I am attempting to grow a few perennials and cut flowers inside my home. And so what I've done is I've actually ordered some So White Gara. You guys know I loved this in my front border. I just became obsessed with it. And so I ordered it a bunch and I have brought it down to my basement. So instead of it going dormant, we're still cooking right along. So that is number one item that I have in my basement. And so far, actually, look at this. These are all new buds. It's setting buds. It's flowering. It's actually grown so much, it no longer fits underneath my grow lights. So I think I'm actually going to have to adjust this down or take out that shelf completely because I think this might work. I think it might work. Okay. I want to let you in on item number 2. We have so far had a 50% failure rate, but that means we've also had a 50% success rate. Friends, here we are, the failures and the successes. Guess which is which. Okay, so coming over here to the beginning, I brought in several dahlias. This first one is poodle skirt. The entire thing got infected with powdery mildew, and I basically gave everything a cut back because these are still green, they're still alive and well. But this turns out, guys, dahlias hate to be grown inside. So wish me luck there. So this is part success, part failure. We'll see what happens. This is my second poodle skirt. I thought this thing was deader than a doornail, yet I came back down here maybe 3 or 4 weeks later and all of a sudden it had resprouted. Now, I don't know if this is going to get big enough to do anything for the show, but we're just going to give it the old college try. Now, as we go back in here, turns out brown sugar is allergic to being brought inside. All 3 of my favorite dahlias just died. And so they're just in here. I'm probably going to pull them out, save the tubers. We'll try again in the spring. The surprise of all surprises has been this baby. This is Cornell Bronze. And you guys, do you see this right here? That is a bud. Okay, cross your fingers for me. I am having yellowing. I have been fertilizing. However, it still is not looking like the coloration is not what I want to see. So we will see what happens. The things that I've really been struggling with down here are powdery mildew and fungus gnats. So when you see the spray back there, that's an organic fungicide for powdery mildew. And, obviously we're inside, so I want it to be as organic as possible. Okay, friends, here is the last kind of funny surprise. This is a dahlia called Lilac Bull. Literally, I found the tuber in the basement, I chucked it in some dirt, and to my surprise, it started growing. Again, I'm having some discoloration of the leaves here. I think I need to inject a ton more fertilizer into this, even though I have been using a fertilizer, but I'm actually really shocked. I'm really, really shocked. The new growth looks good, but I am having this like funky curling to the leaf here. So I got to work on the nutrients. Turns out harder to grow inside than I thought. Actually, strike that. I thought it was going to be hard. It is hard. Okay, before we go upstairs, I want to show you this. This started out as one tiny flat of Origeron. Look at this. I don't know if you can see this bloom. It is looking so good. These things have gotten so massive that I split them out into 2 flats. So there's really only 9 in each. My plan for the coming weeks is that I will transplant these into quartz to grow them on and have them do an even better job of growing and blooming, because I think this would be such a beautiful ground cover at the show, like along kind of maybe like a pathway, softening the edges of some block features. And look at this. Look at all these sweet little blooms. I am just so tickled. I'm so tickled. So, anywho, we still have a long ways to go. There's still a lot of things that can go wrong with planting things inside, but we're just going to soldier on, and we're hoping for the best. We are now back in my office, and I am going to pop you into my computer and show you. Literally, it is a secret hidden Pinterest board. And this is really the first stop after any initial client consultation for the Flower and Garden Show. Really, you and I are kind of the client here. And so I'm taking my own inspiration. I'm going into Pinterest, and I want to show you what I'm starting to curate. And this really is a journey. And I want to walk you through the arc of where I started and where I am right now. So friends, welcome to Pinterest. This is hands down one of my favorite tools that I use for gathering inspiration for any project. In this instance, because this is for the Northwest Flower and Garden Show, I am my own client, and arguably I am my own worst client because I have so many ideas and there's so many things that I want to express. And so I use Pinterest as a tool to refine the image. And also, because I'm really a visual person, I use it to tap into, I like kind of like my mind to go blank, and I just respond. I just respond to things. And I think that is so much fun. So here we are in Pinterest, and I'm going to take you down to the bottom of this board because this is where the fun begins. Now, I have already unhidden, if you want to go follow me on Pinterest, I'm at Hello Garden Design, and I have already unhidden the boards from 2023 and 2024. And you can see how those palettes and those kind of inspiration boards came to life. And then you can hop back in time and go back to YouTube and actually do like a walkthrough of the spaces. So here we are, 2025. And this board, if you go to Pinterest, you will notice this board is still hidden because I'm not ready to share this with the world yet. This is just for you who are watching. This is your sneak peek. And I want to show you the unrefined board so that you can see kind of like my brain in action, because maybe that'll be interesting. I've heard some of you say it's really interesting. So I'm giving the people what they want. All right, so we're gonna start back at the inception of this garden. I started with like an image in my head of what I wanted to show you. And the title of my garden, and it's so funny, like the title sometimes comes before the garden itself. The title of my garden in this instance came before everything else. And the title is Small Space, Big Dream. This is inspired by all of my city clients. This is inspired by all of my people who are on a budget, who don't have really large spaces. And it's also inspired by a couple of comments that I've received on YouTube. And you guys are so sweet and so supportive. And I've received a couple comments that have been to kind of like the energy of, hey, it's really fun to see someone play in a city lot, because not all of us have these giant palatial spaces for us to play in. And I thought to myself, you know, I hope I can show you that you can create a beautiful big dream, and you can create a garden that feels like it's working in tandem with you, even if you don't have a big space. So we started with that image in mind, the small space with the big dream. And I always think, for me, what do I want? Well, I think one of my dreams actually is a greenhouse. It's something I actually really dream of. And so that's where I launched that. I was like, okay, let's start with one of my dreams, and it's a greenhouse. And so here we are. You can see it's the beginning. It's the greenhouse phase. It is collected. I even, it's so funny. I even put a quote in here, and it's a Beatrix Potter quote. It says, "Believe there is a great power silently working all things for good. Behave yourself and never mind the rest." And I was like, at the start of this journey for this garden this year, I want to remember who I am and the message that I want to send to all of you and the invitation I want to send to all of you. So I put it in there just to I love Beatrix Potter. So it's just that good, beautiful, I don't know, it puts my mind in the right framework as I begin this project. So you can see, I was like, okay, we're playing with spaces, we're playing with houses, we're playing with, I kind of wanted to do I thought oh my gosh, I could even maybe podcast from within this, because I have a couple friends who are podcasters, and I thought, oh gosh, wouldn't that be so cool? We could record a podcast from within my garden. And anyways, as I traveled down this road and I was trying to get a partner to support by bringing in a structure, it just wasn't coming together. I was going down all sorts of different roads, reaching out to different suppliers. And at a certain point, I just said, if this is so hard for me to achieve right now, is this really the right move? And I decided I'm going to back off. And unless something comes through naturally, we're moving in a different direction. So now you can see my brain opening up. And it's like, okay, well, what are the other dreams? Well, one dream that I have for this year that I think is actually very attainable is, that I use my dining room table for everything under the sun, but I really want a potting bench. I really want an awesome wood potting bench where I can just putter around and I've got all my things there. So I started playing with potting benches, and I love this modern reclaimed one on the left-hand side and all those gorgeous terracotta pots, and just really, really fun. And then kind of the same thing over here on the right. It's chunky, it's interesting, it's up against a black, which is very similar to my color of house. And then I have this sweet one over here with those little lanterns hanging down, pots on either side, giant terracotta pavers. And I was like, okay, now we're cooking here. And then I don't know how Pinterest did this, but they sent me an image of a shower. And I was like, oh, well, that's actually another dream. I love an al fresco shower situation. This is a dream I have for a house one day. I don't know if it's this house, but it's a future house. So I was like, okay, well, you know what? Here's the deal. I don't know if it's possible, but it is a dream. So on the board it goes. Then I kind of ventured further, and I was like, gosh, I saw this one of this spigot that's kind of dropping water into a half of a shell. And I just loved that beautiful ribbon edge. And so that got me started thinking about containers and how I really want this to be a container forward garden this year, because I've done so much work on containers the past several years. I want to showcase that, and I want to do some really fun stuff. And so you can see here, all of a sudden, the containers were coming. But the containers I was gravitating to were wild and a bit unstructured and unexpected. And I was like, okay, this garden is starting to feel a little wild, and I'm not mad at it. Then came time for me to submit my order through my supplier. With the Northwest Lawn Garden Festival, because we're showcasing at the end of February, we are ahead of most all bulbs that are emerging, save snowdrops, right? And so we need to get our orders in now so those bulbs can make it into the chiller and we can have them forced and ready by showtime. This is also where things usually go awry, because you're playing with Mother Nature and you really never know how things are going to respond. I've had years where I had one year where everything I ordered didn't come up and I had to change color palettes literally at the last second. And then last year, my color palette was pretty on trend. It was pretty as expected, but I did have all of my crocuses eaten by a vermin who got into one of the houses at my supplier. And so I had to completely choose different things. Anyways, this is always a wild card. I'm always going to make my best guess. And if it works, great. And if it doesn't, I shift at the last minute and I cross my fingers. This year, I wanted saturation. I've been craving some depth of color lately. And so what's funny is I chose this Penny Pro Orange and this Penny Violet. And I was like, okay, here we go. But it felt like it was missing something else. It felt like it was missing another freshness. And so I was looking through the selections and I was like, gosh, I never use yellow, but maybe there could be something cool here. And funny enough, the trio of yellows to support this real saturated color palette that I've chosen is a hyacinth called City of Harlem. It is yummy. It is like buttery. It is soft. It is delicious. It's right down here. And then I also chose a super classic, a Tay-to-Tay. And what's so funny is that isn't something that I would naturally be drawn to for the show. I know it's a surefire hit. I know they always come up. They always hold up to whatever is going on in the convention center, but I never choose them because I think you see them everywhere. But for some reason this year, the intensity of that yellow, I felt like it supported the intensity of the orange and the violet that I was presenting. Now, because I had the softness of that hyacinth and I had the strength of the Tay-to-Tay, I felt like I needed something to marry the two. So I actually chose a narcissus called Spring Sunshine, and you can see it right down here on the left. The outer petals are a little bit more of that softer, kind of like barely there buttery yellow that you have from the hyacinth I chose. But then the center is way more saturated and speaks to all of the little Tay-to-Tays that I have. The other thing that all of a sudden came on board was the ranunculus, the Bellinote mix that I bought from Dahlia House from Anne. And those have been a bit of an adventure. They are currently outside. I've had them grow on a little bit inside, and then I've kicked them outside because they were getting really buggy. And I'm hoping that our cool temperatures will help kind of suppress that a little bit, and I can treat them outside before bringing them back in to get them buttered up for the show. But they are already, gosh, maybe they're already like 8 inches tall. They're looking awesome. And so I've got my fingers crossed there. Now, the other thing that was interesting is this year, when they were giving us choices of colors or choices of bulbs, instead of having like, these are the tulips, these are the daffodils, these are the hyacinth, they group them by color. And I don't know what it is about a color scheme, but when I can pick and choose from within a color range, it sometimes triggers something really interesting in my brain. And what I noticed is from the whites, they actually included sweet woodruff. And sweet woodruff, if you've never worked with it, it is great at filling in spaces. It's really great in like a woodland space. It's really kind of unstructured, yet very delicate and also durable at the same time. And I just kind of thought to myself, I've actually never seen anyone work with sweet woodruff at the show. And so what the heck? I'll give it a go. So that was the next thing I chose. Well, as I dug deeper into this color palette and I started looking around my house at what I was loving, I realized I've got these dahlias out back. I wonder what would happen if I potted them up and brought them inside. Well, as you can see, I have a half failure and a half success rate, and Lord only knows if these will make it to the show. However, I did want to actually just still show you right in the middle here. Do you see this pin? It's labeled Autumn Color Palette, and it has this orange and like a soft lilac-y and an antique rose and a deep plum. It was literally when I saw that color palette that I was like, holy cannolis, I think that's my color palette. So what's funny is, do you see right below it, the violas? I've actually started some. And I have these Nature Antiques shades. They're from Johnny's. I ordered them. I've started them in under another set of grow lights. And we're just going to cross our fingers, because what I was noticing about this particular viola is that, actually, let me bring it up bigger here. There we go. Okay, do you see what's happening within this viola? We have
a little bit of orange. We have a little bit of yellow. We have this antique rose. We've got some plummy colors coming through. And all of a sudden, I was looking at these seeds and I was like, this is fantastic. This is another flower that's a bridge element. And I can actually, if I'm able to grow these on indoors for a little while, they can achieve this wildness that sometimes those overgrown violas get. And I kind of love that for the energy that I'm creating here with this small space, big dream, the wildness, the unstructuredness. So all that to say, we will see if this works. But I saw this and I was like, this is the color palette. I started settling into this real orange, purple, and antique rose situation. And it even inspired, they have this labeled bright tropical florals color palette, but I just think this is like so fun. It's feminine, but it's still vibrant. I just feel like it can appeal to a lot of different people. Right here, this next one, I'm going to take this in. This, as you know, Alchemilla mollis, Lady's Mantle, is one of my favorite all-time perennials. And I didn't use it last year, and I'm going to use it this year. So I've already pre-purchased some of these. They're currently sitting in my van, but this week they're coming inside because my hope is that I can have these budded up for the show for that extra little shot of yellow throughout the garden. And then in the back here is actually verbascum. And this is another plant that I have decided to play with this year. And these are also in the van, and they are also going to come inside, and we're going to see if I can get any buds on them. I mean, worst case scenario, they don't do anything and they're just beautiful green foliage. But I have a sneaking suspicion that I think I might be able to get a floral out of that. And this has that antique plum that was appearing in so many of these color palettes. So these are all of my like, gosh, I think this might work, but we're just gonna give it a go. We're gonna see what happens. Okay, let me get back down here. Okay, so we've established the color palette and I'm feeling really good about that. And I'm feeling into this kind of wildness that I'm starting to get attracted to. And it's at that point that all of a sudden this shower situation showed back up. But this time, it was on a giant, I don't know if this is wood or if this is metal. It's hard to say from here. But it showed up on this huge arch. And I thought to myself, having a strength of form in a wild garden creates that tension that you know I love. And I was like, maybe there's something there. So then I found this like zigzag pergola and I thought to myself, gosh, well, that is kind of cool because I want this to be visible from all sides. Oh, my garden this year, by the way, we're not up against a wall. We're back right smack dab in the middle of the showroom floor. So you're going to be able to walk all the way around this thing. And I wanted people to, I love it when you go to the garden show and no matter which way you start or end, you're getting a different experience of the garden. And so I thought, gosh, in this big zigzag kind of going through the garden, that might be really cool. And then kind of Pinterest and its almighty Pinterestness starts sending out more inspirations. And they sent out this cool little archway with a swing in it. And I was like, well, that's darn playful too. And so all of a sudden I found myself thinking, I think what I want to do here for a structure is not actually a structure. I think what I'm going to do is give you kind of the energy of a structure, the illusion of a structure, but we're going to make it fun. We're going to make it a little unexpected. I'm going to keep that a bit of a secret, but I think I want this like simplistic, somewhat masculine, modern shape, some hard lines that are going to contrast against all of the flowiness that I'm bringing in. And this is kind of where you see, like now we have kind of this full image coming through. And you can see right here in the middle, this Hinkley lighting image where we have these arches uplit. And I was like, oh, well, that is cool. So I may be borrowing an idea from Hinkley on that one because I love the idea that like, look at this. It just adds drama. It adds drama. This is so fantastic. And it is such an alternative to normal pathway lighting to uplight something. This is actually something I do on a lot of driveways or different surrounds. Instead of using traditional path lighting, I will actually uplight trees down a pathway, trees down a driveway. And what that does is it creates an ambient light instead of something super directional. So sneak peek there, loving that. As we're kind of like progressing further, 2 more themes emerged. The first of which is this concept of things being interrupted, this concept of the unexpected. And so you can see down here, I know this is kind of like a funky pin to put on there, but it's almost as if someone has taken out little bricks in this walkway and you have just this wild garden emerging. And I love that concept. This is like the same idea of when you pass like a building and you've got like a fern growing out of the gutters, or you are walking down the street and there's a crack in the sidewalk and some beautiful floral is emerging from it. I love that. I love that. It's like against all odds, these things are thriving and are beautiful. And then what I found is, look at this stone right here in the middle, and then you can see it again over here. We have this stone kind of intersecting these super clean lines. And I thought to myself, that energy is really interesting to bring in. It's like this bit of imperfection. It's this bit of unexpectedness that I think could be darn cool. The last thing that I'm going to clue you in on is the finish of this pottery. I am really loving this. I feel like I haven't had a chance to play with this kind of antique vibe of pottery. And what's so funny is if you go back, I started with this kind of concept of reclaimed vessels. And now where I'm at, I'm loving this like barnacle bubble finish. I'm actually going to be partnering this year with Potteryland. They are letting me borrow some gorgeous containers. So stay tuned for that. I'm going to take you shopping there. And I just am like, gosh, that kind of like antique-y barnacle roughness is such a great match for the wildness that I want to create inside. So friends, there we have it. This is your first glimpse inside the creation of my 2025 Northwest Flower and Garden Festival garden. I am so excited to bring you along. And what we're actually going to do is we're going to give you updates every couple of weeks. And I'm going to walk you through the process. We are going to select pavers together. We are going to select stone together. We are going to do some sanding. We're going to do some construction. It's going to be a pretty good time. Okay, I'll see you in the next one. In the meantime, say hello to your garden for me.